Hi, I'm Brandon Hawk. I'm an assistant professor at Rhode Island College, where I teach medieval literature. I specialize in Anglo-Saxon literature, especially Old English, and biblical apocrypha.
And I'm Dot Porter. I'm a curator in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. I work with medieval manuscripts and digitized medieval manuscripts. And today we're going to be looking at some of the manuscripts from the Penn collections as they relate to the manuscripts that we see in Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
So in The Last Jedi, we see these manuscripts in this old tree on the planet of Ahch-To, where Luke is living in exile, sort of a self-exile. And what we find out in that film is that he's found this library of these old ancient Jedi texts. And we're shown a little bit of these books. We're shown some of the bindings and some of the outside, and we get a glimpse of a couple of the pages. But we also discovered through the art book that there's a lot more to these books. And today we want to explore some of the connections between these Jedi manuscripts and actual medieval manuscripts as we find them in collections like here at UPenn.
It's probably also worth saying that according to Star Wars canon, nobody writes anymore. People don't write on paper. They don't write on anything. Everything is digital, essentially.
Right.
And so the fact that these books appear here is, I think, really interesting and important. And also, it's notable that Ben Solo, who is known as Kylo Ren in the films, this is Han Solo and Princess Leia's son, has a calligraphy set.
Oh, right.
So there's this implication that he is actually a part of, potentially, this sort of tradition that has been, as far as we know, up to this point lost. So that's sort of interesting because it ties him potentially in with these Jedi manuscripts, which, as we know from the end of the film, Rey has with her on the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
So the manuscripts they only appear in a couple of scenes, really, but they seem to be really important to the way the story is being laid out.
That's right. And this is the first time we've ever seen anything like paper or writing or books in the whole Star Wars galaxy, in the movies.
In the movies, yes.
So this is a really exciting sort of shift for the way that the mythos is kind of unfolding.
Yeah, and it's great for us as medievalists.
That's right.
Because I think when I watched the movie, I know that you saw trailers. I avoided the trailers before the film, and watching the movie and just being like, oh my god, there's like manuscripts. It was really incredible.
Yeah, it was really exciting, and I was watching the movie and thinking immediately to like, oh, these look like they could be like these other manuscripts, or how could this unfold? Will we see more of these? I could even imagine all sorts of future ways that the manuscripts could enter the Star Wars galaxy through movies or the series or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you wrote a blog post, didn't you?
I did.
Pretty soon after.
Yeah, I went into the movie thinking about writing about this, and I wrote a couple of things on it. I wrote for Forces of Geek, and then I wrote my own blog post because you had found this Tumblr site.
Yes. Right, the Cassiopeia.
That's right.
Right, and she had, or they, I don't know, had written this post right after it came out, sort of listing all sorts of potential influences on the manuscripts, not in great detail, but it was enough to sort of think, oh yeah, why don't we look at this? And that's sort of, I guess, what led us here today to look at some actual real medieval manuscripts and see how they relate.
Yeah, that's right. And so we're really interested in sort of two aspects of the Jedi manuscripts. One is that we see a couple of pages, but then in the art book for the film, we're actually given a lot more detail. We're given 6 pages and images of these, which we have with us today. And that's the one part, is the content of these manuscripts. What sorts of things do we find in these manuscripts? What are the images like? What is the text like? And how does that compare to some of the Western and I guess even some non-Western manuscripts that we have here with us, and how those contents parallel each other.
Right.
And then you're really interested in the other part.
Right, and the bindings. So looking at the construction of the books and how they're put together. And there are some really interesting things about the way that the physical books have been designed. Some of them are very cool. Some of them make me laugh a little bit, and we'll talk about that when we get to there. But it's just really cool. It's really cool.